Hey family, what's going on? I'm Ryan Johnson,
And I'm Jamie Johnson.
and we want to welcome you to our Marriage Chronicles live episode where we get to share our whole marriage in full colors so that you and your spouse can grow.
So listen, do us a big favor.
Big favor.
Subscribe, share with your friends, your families. Just tell them all about this podcast because you're going to learn something about it, something about life or whoever. If you're in a relationship or you're looking forward to marriage or you're dating, or as the older generation would say, courting, listen, you will get something out of this podcast.
So today we're going to be talking about what makes a marriage absolutely work. And I have my beautiful wife, and we're just going to really just kind of just talk a little bit. What do you think makes a marriage work?
Do you know what? I think there's so many different factors that contribute to making a good marriage. And the first thing you've got to remember is don't look for a perfect marriage.
That's
because
real.
no
That's real.
marriage is perfect
at all.
at all. And I think it's about understanding who you are as a person, and then it's about taking that time out to understanding who your spouse is as well as a person. And I think that's a really key factor for
I agree.
me.
I
But
agree.
I think we should isolate three things. What do you think?
I agree. There's a few things that I kind of just want to share with you all that I truly believe that's going to kind of just help you all. Now, we know that what makes a marriage work from a Christian point of view, we know we got to have God in the mix. And we also know when we got married, we said, I love you, or I'm in love with you. I know I did when it came to my wife. I told her I loved her and she loved me like crazy. That's my version, really my version. But the reality of the situation is three things I want to kind of really share with you all that I believe that if you kind of get this aspect, because we've been married for 18 years. It's like, wow, 18 years, and we've been going for a good minute. I was like 23 years old when I said, will you marry me? I think 22 actually.
No, we
22.
started dating from 19.
19. Wow, we're going way back. So 19 start dating. I was about 22 when I got married, about to turn 23, and there has been an absolutely huge journey. Sometimes that journey has been up, sometimes that journey has been down, which many of you who are married would actually appreciate and understand what we're kind of saying. But me, after being married for 18 years, I can't honestly say we're perfect, but I would say that we've gone on a journey enough to, give a little piece of our experience and our journey of what we went through. So one of the things that I found myself having to learn over the years is, number one, understanding.
Yeah.
Understanding was a huge thing because I think coming into marriage, I don't know about you, but I know me coming into marriage, I had a certain way I wanted to do things at all times.
Yep,
and I know you remember that. I know you remember that a lot. I had a certain way I wanted to do marriage, and I wanted to do it this way, and this is the only way it had to be done. And it did not work the way or go down the way. How do you think it went?
I think it was, I found it really challenging because especially when, the Bible talks about submission, I found it really challenging to submit because I felt like, I wasn't able to verbalize it then, but verbalizing it from now, it felt like I was submitting to pride.
That's deep.
Right?
That's deep.
It felt like I was submitting to an element of pride because I felt that you were only being like that. It was kind of more coming out of a place of being prideful. So I found that really challenging to submit to that. So as you know, and as you can remember, I kind of would fight against certain things, or I'd always find an issue with certain things.
Yeah.
And I think it was the way you communicated it to me. Like, over the years, you've changed the way you speak to me. It's not that you tip your toe around me because you've never been that kind of man, and I really appreciate that because you've always been very, forthright, very direct with what, I always know where I stand with you and vice versa. But I really appreciated the fact that, you nurtured me So if you were telling me something about myself, you'd say it in a very nurturing way, even as the truth, the truth, right? But you said it in a very nurturing way, and that was really, really, I love that, and I still love that up until this day, you know, that you do that, you know, you take the time out. I think you pick the right time to say things, especially sometimes when I'm coming from work or I'm tired or whatever, you know, you choose the right time, and I think that's really good. I think that's where we've learned to develop understanding over the years, right?
I think that's key because, you know, me first coming into marriage, you know, you were taught one way, I was taught one way how to approach and to deal with a woman that was in front of me, and I only dealt with it according to the way I actually learned. So over the years, I've learned to really just understand you. In other words, you know, willing to see things from your viewpoint.
Yeah.
And I think that was key when I started to see and understand that, you know what, you are going through, you are experiencing some things, and it can't be fixed the way I want it to fix. It has to be fixed on your level.
Yeah.
So it brought me in, that understanding brought me into, you know, really not only understanding things from your viewpoint, but just learning the true essence of compassion. You know, compassion, it took me I think it took me years to really get that word fully in our marriage. You know what I mean? When I got to compassion, I started to now understand compromise. You know, compromise situations in order to move things forward, and it's been a journey.
Do you remember that time when I used to say to you, I think we got into a bit of a debate, well, a heated discussion, and I said to you, you are so not compassionate. You lack compassion on every area.
I remember
and I
that.
didn't think you were a compassionate person because the way you were so blunt and around things and the
unfiltered.
way like I used to think you would say, that's what I used to say, didn't I? Said you need to pray to God ask you to learn to be compassionate because you lacked so much compassion. But that's what I thought, you know, you weren't very compassionate.
I agree.
Because I think you, sorry to cut you, I think you saw things very black and white.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what was the challenge for you, was to see outside of what you could see. You could see it this way, but then as over the years you've kind of taught me too, is that things are not just one dimensional. It's not just on one plane, is it? It's 4D. It brings more of that experience of life into it. So
I think it took me the best part of almost 18 years to learn how to.
I think you mastered it way before.
Yeah, way before. But I feel probably more comfortable now.
Yeah.
You know, to say that when it comes to my whole life, in absolutely communicating with you is about making sure I understand where you are. You know what I mean, and what direction you're taking, and even, you know, as we're going along, I even understood the simple fact of, like, even the second thing I understood is making time.
Yeah.
Making time, especially, you know, sometimes we can get so busy. I'm doing business, I'm doing ministry, I'm doing so many different things. We have our young son Jeremiah. You know, you're working, and you know, it gets hard to make time. But one of the things I love is that no matter how busy I am, you know, no matter how busy you are, we make sure we put things into place. You know, let's get our dates. Our dates may not be the normal 7 o'clock, but it may be when you get off work and we go, you know, 12 o'clock in the day. I mean, what is that like? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think we're good at doing that. But sometimes I think it's so funny because I think we've got a really nice groove, and we've got into a groove within our marriage in the sense of that we can keep going, and it's only until when we sit down and have that quality time together we realize, oh my gosh, I really miss this. You know, we can keep going, and we create a real great atmosphere around when we're around each other. But it's only when we sit down, it was like, oh my gosh, I really needed this. Like, I really missed you, and you know, that's when I realized how much. But because unless we actually have that little, you know, that pit stop, that little moment where we stop, you know, sometimes we don't realize how much that connection's so important. You know, talking to each other, just those hugs and those kisses and you know, all of that, just reconnecting is just so important. And you know, I mean, like I said, we can both go on for days, weeks, and just function at that high level, and without arguing or any fuss or anything like that. but we realize the importance of connecting. It refuels us, doesn't it? It refuels me anyway.
At least, it refuels me. I know it refuels you, just having dates and, laughing, because sometimes life can be so serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just constantly just getting to this place where, I want to laugh. And I know, you know what I mean? I know you tell me my jokes are not funny, but I think they're funny.
They're not.
You know what I mean?
He laughs at his own jokes. Like, come on, guys, listen. Who does that? He laughs at his own jokes before he even finishes the joke, and then it kills the joke for me, and he doesn't understand why.
The crazy part
I don't understand
my
his
son
jokes.
thinks I'm funny.
Yeah, because he's
what I mean?
Jeremiah's going to. Jeremiah, listen, in Jeremiah's eyes, Daddy is superhero. Daddy cannot do anything wrong.
Yes.
So, he's going to be like that. He's going to laugh at your jokes.
Well, you know what? It's all good. I think I got a little funny thing going on with me. But, I'm really thrilled at constantly, us making time, because it's about, and I think this is where it gets tough, living in the States, coming from England, as opposed to America, we're always grinding, making sure we got to work to making sure we got to make ends meet. So that emotional and physical connection, again, I think it is important because, where we were just focused on getting work done, it causes our head to just, go ahead and just look at each other and just in each other's eyes and, just tell you I love you and all that. Good. See, she's getting bashful now. Look at you, girl. All right. But you know what I mean. But it's getting to that place which I believe is important. And I think the third thing I kind of personally realize in regards to making a marriage work, and particularly making our marriage work, is being open and being real open. That's not always easy. Sometimes, from a cultural point of view, we are taught to, even when we get in marriage, to just don't say all of our feelings. Don't tell, what's going on inside. And, as a man, sometimes, don't have to worry about, showing a level of emotions. And I think it took me a long time to show emotions. And I think when I did show emotions, you almost didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Do you know, it's funny. That's so true that you said that, because you're always strong. Always strong. And if I'm honest with you, and appear to be strong. And to be honest with you, I feel that sometimes people misunderstand you as a person because you're not that emotional person. You don't allow your emotions to govern you. So people expect you, especially when people understand the kind of weight that you carry, the amount of hats that you have to wear, people expect you to be a certain way. And when they see that you're not that way, someone's like, well, is he a real person? Like, he's not being real with himself. But you've always been this strong person. You don't let things get to you. And, I remember, I'll never forget it, that time when you did show emotion, I think I had a bit of a crisis because I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to do with him. And because I was never used to comforting him on that level, I found it so hard. It was hard, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. And then I'm thinking to myself, now I'm showing emotions, and now she's not showing emotions. So it just left me vulnerable. But it didn't scare me because I knew how important it was to, as a man, for me to show you who I was, to be able to share my heart, to share my feelings with you, to make sure that there was a space that was created. And I think we've now created that space after a long time, where it's like a safe space.
Yes.
Where we can share something with one another and we don't feel a certain way, So, being in our marriage has been a complete journey. We've gone from 2 continents, from the UK all the way over here to the US. But, constantly we are finding ourselves, even now, constantly working on our marriage, from understanding to making time to being open. And I think it's the keys that, we definitely need, and hopefully somebody that's listening will need in order to make things happen. Because sometimes we can say, all I need is God, and that will bring my marriage to the place it needs to. And the reality of it, we do need God. He's the bonding glue to who we are. But there are other factors that God has put in place in order for us to really run and become the best version of ourselves and really make marriage work.
Yeah. And you know what? Just what came to my mind when you spoke about openness and being vulnerable, it's about maintaining that safe space. And the reason why I say that is sometimes when when there lacks a level of maturity in the marriage and within the person, sometimes we can use our spouse's weakness and use it against them, especially when we're upset or we're angry or we haven't resolved certain things in ourselves. So then when we get into arguments, what we start to do then is start to throw emotional hand grenades at each other because we want to hurt that person because we're hurting. And it's about actually, do you know what? And I think what some spouses need to ask themselves is, am I mature enough to handle my husband's or my wife's most vulnerable areas of life, or their most vulnerable secrets, or the most vulnerable things that pertain to them? Because sometimes we want our spouses to share, tell me, babe, what's wrong, talk to me.
We can't handle it.
But then can you really handle that information? Like, can you be trusted with that classified information, know full well that your family is not going to find out or your best friends are not going to find out? Because that's what people do when they're going through, they don't know what to do with that information and they decide to talk about it and tell all their family and friends. And then when you guys have resolved the situation, guess what? Family and friends are still upset with you. They're holding it against your spouse because they haven't gone through that process of reconciliation and that process of peace. And I think that's really important is, yes, okay, you need to ask yourself, can I handle my husband being open? Can he trust me with everything? And that's really key, because there's been times when we've almost done that, haven't we, where I've shared with you something.
I've been there.
You reminded me about it.
I've been there because it's one of the things that I've learned over time not to do anymore. Yeah. If you've shared something with me, I just leave it alone. You share with me, I've locked it up in the most safest and secure place in my heart that I can always make you feel really comfortable. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing of it all. And you know what? I believe this is how we make marriage work. And this is how we're going to continue.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course. He taught me that when we first got married. Remember, it took me ages to figure it out. Give me a hand, don't leave me hanging. It's like, it took me ages and then it was,
I think it's good. But this is, family, this is how we make marriage work.